So welcome everybody to another menopause coaching conversation. So I'm Amantha King. I would like to welcome my wonderful, wonderful guest who I met a year ago. Can you believe it? June Potts.
Hi everybody, it's great to meet you today.
Oh, fantastic. So let me tell you a bit about June and why I was so keen to get this amazing lady on. June is a business consultant. She helps businesses create menopause-friendly workplaces. She looks at the financial impact. She looks at the impacts generally of women experiencing the menopause. And she is a super, super intelligent lady. She has an award-winning MBA. She's going to tell us a bit about the research, and she's also the founder and director of Menopause 360. So welcome, June. We have got so much to get through in 30 minutes, but we're going to break it up into three beautiful distinct parts. We're going to make a menopause sandwich between the two of us, and it's going to look something like this. So that we're going to spend some time getting to know June, because June has an amazing story. I don't know if you remember, June, last year when I put my post out, you responded, and it just really touched me emotionally, actually, the power of your personal story and how you've used your personal story for the greater good of us girls, particularly those ladies going through the menopause. So would you like to just tell us a little bit about you before we get into how we can help ladies and what our aspirations are for the future? So tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. It's great to be involved, and I can't believe that we've known one another for a year now. So yeah, just to start with, I started my business and I returned to education, mainly because I'd experienced menopause negatively in the workplace. And at that time, and even though I'd had a hysterectomy, I didn't really realize the impact that menopause would have upon me and upon my life, to the point that I'd become unrecognizable to myself and to other people. So usually an extrovert, I became withdrawn, I become invisible, and this led to problems within the workplace. Now, what I always do when I meet a crossroads in my life, I return to education to understand what was happening, because I've been sidelined from my role as a senior leader, which was a time which was quite daunting in my life. I had, a mother who was ill. I had a daughter who was going to university. My husband was recovering from cancer. So, anybody who knows anything about menopause is they'd be aware of what they call the sandwich generation. And I am typical of that. So I returned to education, did an MBA, and for my business consultancy research project or dissertation, I studied menopause in the workplace, and I titled my research "Menopause at Work: Flushing Out the Taboo." And as part of that, I used data analysis, which what that is which was ipoem, sorry, and what that is when I did in-depth interviews with women, I took out the line of each time they started to sentence with "I" to create a poem. So what I have done here is I have my ipoem, which I'd like to share with you today. So this is my story in poetry. So I hope that makes sense.
Oh,
does that
yes,
make
please.
sense?
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I've become a little bit tongue twisted there, but it makes it all the more real, doesn't it, really?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I worked in financial services. I held a senior position for 16 years. I had endometriosis and Pmdd. I didn't divulge. I had a hysterectomy. I entered menopause. I lacked menopause awareness. I looked after a mother with dementia. I had a daughter leaving for university, and I had a husband recovering from cancer. I was fatigued. I had insomnia. I had mood swings. I was stressed. I overtalked. I forget if I didn't. I had brain fog. I felt I was losing my mind. I was paranoid. The company was transitioning. I was emotional. I cried at work twice. I had a low mood. I didn't recognize myself. I didn't divulge. I identified myself through my work. I had a new male manager. I performed. It was behaviors. I was sidelined without discussion or support. I took a newly created role. I felt humiliated and embarrassed. I divulged. I received 6 counselling sessions. I became invisible. I suffered short-term mental illness, and I had a cliff edge moment. I asked to work flexibly. I started a part-time MBA. I needed to understand. I wanted to get my life back on track. I wanted to research menopause at work. I was denied research opportunities at work. I was told no one wants to talk about menopause. I found another source. I engaged with female leaders from other sectors. I realised I wasn't alone. I found the courage to speak at work. I was made redundant. I become educated. I finished my MBA with distinction. I won an award from Liverpool Business School. I turned a negative experience into a positive. I set up Menopause 360 consultancy, and I help organisations to understand the impact of menopause. I am now the person I could have been. What's so significant about my ipoem, Amantha, is that it really, menopause is often spoken about with negative rhetoric, and also as well negative attitudes are shown towards menopause. And what that ipoem shows is that it doesn't need to be like that. It can be different. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, I feel really emotional, actually. I feel really
Do
emotional.
you?
I do feel really emotional hearing that, because I remember talking to you as you were going through your MBA. For anyone who's concerned that door's opening, this is live. This is my cat who's just come in to say hello. So I'm sorry about that. It's nothing spooky. But yeah, it makes me feel really emotional, but both extremes. Just the unfairness and the injustice of how you were treated. That makes me
Yes.
mad as hell, actually, if I'm really honest. But also then, despite everything you went through, look what you're doing. You're
Absolutely.
here anyway. You arrived anyway. And
Yes.
that is what I think unifies both of us, doesn't it? That's why we've come to know each other. And I adore you. I think there's everything that you do is
Oh,
brilliant.
likewise.
Yeah, I do. I'm
Likewise.
such a girl. I've got such a girl crush on you, and it's because of what is possible. Because it can really go one of two ways, can't it, June? And I think that ipoem is beautiful, really empowering. I think for women as well, because there's bits of that you maybe want to leave behind, but there's bits of that you absolutely want to identify with and really grasp hold of. So I think it's a fantastic thing for women, and I know it's something you've done with got other women to do, you said, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. So I interviewed 6 women as part of my research, and I produced ipoems for each of those women. So they each have those ipoems as part of their journey. And what I found was that when women were in postmenopausal stage, they started to use positive language to describe the menopause. So the word lucky was used by women 48 times who were in postmenopause when I was speaking to them about their experience, whereas women in perimenopause spoke very negatively about their experiences. And I thought that was quite significant, because what it sort of signifies is that as women transition through the 3 stages of menopause, when they get into the final stage, then symptoms start to become milder for many. And also women start to get their confidence back. They also are in a different stage of their life. And women started to tell me that they now don't feel guilty about saying no. They've now got the freedom from periods, freedom from children, to be able to do what they want to do. So although it may seem daunting for many people to transition through the menopause, we need to keep that in mind, that it can be a positive experience for many, and especially if the symptoms are managed, which is what you do an awful lot. What is it, Amantha? You do coaching with women and guide them through through what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And and the most important thing, we're going to talk about what we wish we had, but one of the
Yes.
really most important things is knowledge is an absolute springboard to having a better menopausal experience. It's just a fact. It's a bit like the research that shows if you have a female partner during labour, you're more likely to have a more positive birth, actually, you know. So
I
having
didn't know that.
yeah,
That's really
the
interesting.
stats really bear out having another woman there is very, very empowering. Not that they're doing anything. I mean, I remember having my mum in the delivery suite. I mean, she's an ex-nurse, so I trumped out massively with having my mum there. But I had a really difficult time. But actually, I don't remember it being difficult because she was so encouraging and just her presence. And so I think for women, you know, women are good at talking, aren't they, June? There's no doubt.
They are, absolutely.
There's no doubt about that. So I think the more we put the knowledge into those environments for women, the more we can help them. And like you say, boosting their confidence, the I can moves away from the I can't, you know, and getting women to really understand you're just about to go into the best years. When we consider that the average age for menopause is 51 and that life expectancy is as much as 83, we've got a significant amount of our life, almost a third left. So
absolutely,
we need to go for it. So what do you love? What do you love most about your work and what you do with businesses? What are you discovering? Because this is a relatively new area, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. So if we just go back 12 months ago, and even when I was doing my research, there wasn't really anything in this space. And we've had the conversation, Amantha, about how the difference this year in October, which is Menopause Awareness Month, and World Menopause Day is on the 18th of October, the difference a year makes and the amount of traction and the amount of interest in menopause has increased. And that has just got to be, you know, fantastic really for everybody. And it is, as you said earlier, it is this awareness piece that is just like gold dust really. And I just wish, you know, that I knew about menopause, even though I had a hysterectomy and I was given pieces of paper to read. I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into. And I treated myself to a menopause, believe it or not, for my 50th birthday. And because I'd had that much problems with endometriosis, and I had a condition which wasn't diagnosed until I went to find out about hysterectomy, which was Pmdd, which is post-menstrual dysphoria dysfunction. And I'd never heard of it, didn't know what it was. And it wasn't until I read back on it now and I think, why did it take till I was 50 to identify this condition I've lived my life with? And basically the symptoms of it was really severe PMS and really chronic pain every month, mood swings. And these were things that I needed to manage, but manage manually, because there was nothing, there's no medication or anything to have helped me over them years, because I didn't even know that I had it. When I was younger, I went to the doctors and was diagnosed with PMS, but was told that there was no cure. There was no cure for endometriosis. And so, you know, I never ever returned to my doctors to find out what was, if things have moved on in that area. So I think it's really important for women to understand their bodies and understand the effects of hormones on their bodies. I wish I'd have known that many years ago, because I could have been a different person for all of those years.
Well, that's so true, isn't it? And before we sort of started recording, we were talking about, you know, we've got families, we've got daughters, you know, and the reality is that, you know, we need to share this information. I, very similarly to you, I mean, I didn't realize just how much I had been struggling until after I had my daughter, because that's when the hormones really started playing up. I mean, I'd had all sorts of symptoms in my 20s and in my 30s, really heavy periods and stuff like that. But it wasn't until actually last year I got a DNA report done, and it shows that actually me, my two sisters are all estrogen dominant. So actually
really?
really, really interesting. So, you know, we're sort of sandblasted, aren't we, that actually we need to take estrogen, we need to take estrogen. No, actually what I think is really important is you need to know your stuff about you. You need to know your cycles and what it means, how they're changing.
Absolutely.
The DNA reports are really fantastic because what they do is they highlight where there might be problems in your circuitry. And for my sisters and myself, my mum showed exactly the same patterning. She had to have a hysterectomy in her early 50s. That was the answer back then, just whip everything out, which is not great. My sister has had a hysterectomy and double ovary removal, and that's my older sister. So actually, I didn't want that for me. I wanted something different. And the DNA report showed actually I need to be very careful with estrogen because I'm already, even though my hormone levels have dropped, there's definitely still more estrogen than there is progesterone. So,
and can I just ask, how does that manifest itself? So what kind of symptoms do you
really
see?
good
How
point.
do you know that?
How do you know that? Well, it's things like when you do have a bleed, they are very clotty, very heavy.
Right.
You know, temper, mood, that can be really up and down, because, and your sleep. And what shone a light on it for me, June, was actually I became very allergic to everything. So you're thinking, hang on a minute, estrogen, what's that got to do with allergies? Overnight, I couldn't take ibuprofen or aspirin. I became highly allergic, can't eat strawberries, peppers. This was literally overnight. And what I
Wow.
discovered from my DNA report is actually I'm histamine intolerant now. And that's all to do with having estrogen as your driver. So if any ladies are watching this going, hang on a minute, actually, I've started to notice I'm becoming slightly intolerant to things, maybe get a bit of a loose tummy, or, you know, just hives, little rashes, feeling itchy. Anxiety when you're sleeping, that was the biggest sign for me, and palpitations. So many women often think palpitations are to do with estrogen. They can be, but they can also be due to histamine. So this is what I'm saying. It's not as clear cut. Certainly, it's better than nothing. If you can sit in front of a GP that has limited knowledge and they go, I think based on your symptoms, you need HRT. I would say personally, if you've got a family history and other siblings who are showing interesting, inverted commas, symptoms, it'd be worth getting a DNA report done, because you're going to know exactly where the problems are. And it was a game changer for me. So I was able to go back to my consultant, my menopause specialist consultant, and go, actually, I think there's a problem with my histamine. So I think this is
My
emerging
goodness.
research. This is going to come, you know, as we know, you can't have something like estrogen, which has 400 different functions in the body, and not suddenly have problems elsewhere. It's not just about what happens in our reproductive organs. I think it's going to be so interesting the next 10 years in terms of research. I think it's going to be fascinating for both of us.
Absolutely. But I would also say, because, you know, this is one of my things, is testosterone as well. You know, before women go into menopause, they produce 3 times more testosterone than estrogen. And yeah, you know, female testosterone isn't available in the UK on the NHS, and the only way to get hold of it is to go private.
Well, I've got some good news. I've got some good news.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got some good news. An early Christmas present. There is news that Androfem is going to be in a pump dispenser pack, and thankfully, Louise Newson is actually in consultation with Public Health England, that may be available as early as 2022.
Wow, that's great. That's fantastic
and
news.
The makers of, I think they're called Bessins, the makers of Testigel, are also looking into putting it into a more user-friendly female format, so that you don't have to decant loads and loads of sachets. That is hot off the press this week. So it's hugely, hugely exciting. So we're making things happen, you know.
Absolutely.
So let's keep going, June. Let's keep going.
Well, that is music to my ears, because that is the forgotten hormone, and it's something that I have struggled without, but I didn't even realize I needed it. So that is fantastic.
And there's even more good news. They were talking about women having it for the rest of their lives, whereas the advice was before you take it for a short amount of time. Actually, you know, patients in care homes should be being reassessed. That is on the table as well.
That's interesting,
because
isn't it?
urinary incontinence, guess why that's happening? Because you don't have enough testosterone, enough estrogen vaginally. So we could really dramatically reduce the amount of antibiotic use for cystitis and various infections if actually we gave women back their hormones. That's all we're asking
Absolutely.
for.
Well, that's all we want, isn't it? We don't want special treatment in the workplace. We don't want nothing else except our hormones back. We want to be the people that we've always been at the end of the day.
Definitely. I can think there's a new t-shirt coming. Give me back my hormones. Give me back my hormones. I want them back. I don't think that will all fit on there though, June.
And then on the back it needs, no men want to know is what the hell's going on with these women in our lives.
Yeah, exactly. But you see, so it's good, isn't it? Even in this short amount of time.
Yes.
Because the noise is there, we're making this change. So it's brilliant. So PMDD, I mean, that is absolutely fascinating, and you've really taught me something today. And I know on Instagram there are a number of people talking about PMDD, so it's really important that we open up the conversations. We talk to our grandmothers, we talk to our aunties, our nieces, our daughters, you know, anyone who identifies as being female, transgender people as well. You know, the reality is it's going to affect all of us. 51% of the population. 51's the magic number, isn't it? 51% of the population and 51. So what do you find most rewarding about the work you do?
I think what it is highlighting the impact of menopause and being able to make a difference. So by guiding that, I have a 7-stage framework. It's called the 360 framework, which I coach in organizations. So I'm a B2B organization, so I deal with other organizations rather than women on a one-to-one basis, albeit I do work with women in groups. And basically I go into organizations and help them to understand the impact of menopause by looking at risk assessments. So what is the cost of menopause to their business through absenteeism, presenteeism, and women leaving the workplace. I then also help them to gather employee insights in order to get an overview of what is actually going on in their organization. And from that, they can then start to pull together policy and guidance. Now, I don't write policy and guidance mainly because there's that much good stuff online from the public and the private sector that people can access. So you've got Channel 4, which we've spoken about in the past, haven't we? You've got Channel 4 and their policies, and you've got Tesco's, another one. There's quite a lot out there, the CIPD. And basically, I think that a lot of guidance and policy needs to be guided by steering groups within the organisation to include line managers, HR, occupational health, and senior leaders. It all needs to come from the top. And that's the bit that I enjoy most of all, is finding the insights to be able to guide the journey forward. So that then leads into line manager training, awareness in the workplace, and then also signposting as well. So, you know, instead of just putting a sticky plaster over the problem, what can organizations do to help the women in that they employ? So one of the great things that have come out recently is about Timpson's, and they've offered to cover the cost of HRT. And I know of a number of other organizations have offered to do the same for women in their organization. So again, it's about making those changes and helping organizations to understand what they can do to support women and also men in their workplace too. So they're the kind of things I enjoy doing the most.
Well, that's fantastic, because you know, that is the thing that's going to make it long lasting, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because we're sort of like the sister of mental health and the people that have been championing mental health. Now, I've been in that space as well, because you can't have menopause without mental health, quite frankly.
No.
So, but it's been so hard, isn't it? You know, mental health provision is not a fruit bowl on the end of the coffee bar at work. You know, it's not a yoga session or a cake sale once a week. Although those things are lovely, it's not really a long-term solution to the problems. So I agree with you completely. Changing hearts and minds is what's going to really get this going, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's about embedding it, isn't it, really, into the culture. And menopause isn't just one conversation. You know, I have a saying that menopause is everywhere, but it's nowhere. And if you're thinking that sounds familiar, I robbed it off Meghan Markle, but she wasn't talking about the menopause. She was talking about the herself.
Shame on her. She should have been. She should have been.
And so basically, yeah, it's everywhere because we're all talking about it, but it's nowhere because there's still 80% of organizations that are not considered menopause friendly. They haven't taken action. So, you know, menopause is far deeper than that. One awareness session and a tick box. It's about making sure that it's a safe environment for women to age well and to be there to thrive at work, where they can be, you know, they can feel themselves, that they can be themselves, and where they won't be shown bias or stigma or discriminated against in the workplace. And I think that's really important.
Definitely, definitely. And I suppose we can't have this conversation. Well, we could, but I think it would be remiss of us if we didn't mention a very, very important group who are the partners who support the perimenopausal or menopausal women. So let's pay a little bit of homage to them. I mean, when you think about your own situation, I mean, what do you think we could offer? What do you think we need to be offering to our partners, the partners who are supporting women going through the menopause, or those that identify with being female going through the menopause? What can we do to support them even more? Because I tried to set up, and I have got a group, but it was a small number of group. Bearing in mind I put a post up and more than 3,000 people have looked at it. Actually, at least 10 people have come forward saying they would like to have a conversation. Now, I'm pretty sure there are more people who want to have that conversation, but they don't know how to do it, because I don't think there is a safe space for people to talk about the impact on their partner and how it impacts them. So what do you think we could do?
Well done, first of all, for setting that up, because that's a brilliant initiative. I did actually see it on LinkedIn, and to get 10 men come forward, that's pretty good. My experience really of men is that they're really curious and they want to know about what's going on. They ask questions, and this is men across generations. So whether it be someone's husband or partner, work colleague, or even a son. Yeah, it affects all men. But my experience, even though the research doesn't back that up, because the research says that women will not divulge to men, even if it's their husbands, they often brush it off and say, oh, they won't understand, or, right, you know, I don't really, you know, I really don't want to speak to him because you know, he won't understand or support me. And maybe that's why the divorce rate amongst 45 to 55-year-olds is at the highest at that point, and it also coincides with the average age for menopause transition. So that's either coincidence or consequence at the end of the day. But I think it's women's perceptions that men won't understand, and I think it's women that are the problem in a lot of instances, and not the men. And I think that we should give them more we should appreciate more that they're just as concerned as what we are. But then at the end of the day, if you don't know that you get in menopause transition, then how the hell are men supposed to know that you're in that stage of life when they've never been educated about it, when taught in school, not like menstruation and reproduction? They know nothing whatsoever unless their mother or somebody else has educated them. So I think we need to give men in our lives a little bit more credit. And I know that we've spoken to one another about ours. My husband has been absolutely amazing. You know, we've talked about mood swings and things like that. And he's been very supportive throughout, to the point that I run a session last year, and my husband did a piece on menopause from a man's perspective. And at the end of that session, he spoke for about 10 minutes, and women found it really engaging. I've been speaking for 2 hours, and in the feedback, everyone was talking about this 10-minute of menopause from a man's perspective. And at the end of that session, there was 12 women, and 2 of them asked my husband whether he would speak to their husbands because they were concerned about their marriages. And I think that that's really sad at the end of the day, that that is happening, and that, you know, we're not able to open up and talk about what is a natural part of our lives.
I think that's so true, June. I think that's so lovely. And I think it is a passage of time. I think we have to counteractively be patient with our partners in our lives, because they're scared, quite frankly. They're
Yeah.
fearful.
You've said it more eloquently than
No,
me. I've
no,
said it
not
all
at,
around my
no, not
houses.
at all, not at all. And I think it's that. I think it's the intangibles, isn't it? We don't know what's
Absolutely.
happening to us. So how can we explain? You know, and actually, one minute I'm feeling all right, the next I feel like my world's just fallen apart, and it can literally go from minute to minute. And so that makes us seem quite unpredictable. And you know, we don't have the wherewithal to want to talk about it again, because we just lived a whole day of going through it. So there is this difficulty. But what I've experienced, because of course I'm not just doing the menopause stuff. Actually, my proper day job is I'm a strengths coach. I'm an executive coach. But if I tell you, June, in the last 12, 13 years, I haven't had a single conversation that didn't start, how are things at home? And people saying, actually, it's a nightmare. You know, it's really difficult, or it's really challenging.
That doesn't surprise me, Amantha. And it's great. We're a great coach they have in you because of your breadth of knowledge.
Well, that's what made me a year ago go, can't only be me, June. It
No.
just can't be me. You know, my gorgeous husband, we've been together 30 years next year. There's not a single thing.
Wow.
There's not a thing he doesn't know about me. And actually, I can honestly say he has been a complete rock for me. Complete, you know, when I really couldn't find the strength myself to keep going, he was so encouraging, came to every appointment with me, booked appointments for me because I didn't have the wherewithal to do the research. You know, said to me, there's Women's Hour. That's where I first heard about Louise Newson. He went, I'm recording that for you so we can sit down together and listen to it. I honestly think what you said is so important, but I think it goes back much, much further than now. It goes back to in schools, doesn't it?
Absolutely,
it goes back to not just schools, but families talking openly about it, talking about what girls and boys can both expect in their lives, because I bet the andropause is going to be a great other big piece of research going forward, but we'll let the boys talk about that. Yeah, I do. I think you'll get some man that goes, do you know what? We need to sort something out for the boys, and they'll crack on with it.
Yeah, I've heard very, you know, to and for, and you know, for and against on that do men actually go through andropause, and that can't women have something that just they own, not men?
Well, if you think about the shared hormone testosterone, which we both love,
yeah,
that's their dominant hormone.
It's
going to make sense, isn't it? You know, why do the rates of prostate cancer go up suddenly, astronomically?
Well, that's what my husband had, prostate cancer at the age of 50.
So I don't know. I think there is going to be more research, but you know what? There's not enough money to go all around. So fine, we'll invest it in menopause for now. I think, June. I think that's the answer. But yes, I think we do.
Your view is important, isn't it? Sorry to overtalk you there, Amantha. It's you know, it's a view, isn't it? And it's a relevant view. It'll be interesting to see what happens in that space, because you're already seeing advertisements for erectile dysfunctioning and things like that, and you wouldn't have seen that many years ago, would you?
No, definitely not. So I think it is. I think it's a shared thing. I'd like to imagine it. So let's start getting into what we want, what we imagine, where we can see this going. Because you and I, and an army of women are getting stuck into this. Yes, we've got the celebrities, but also the people like you and I, who literally are at the coalface, are doing our bit, and it all counts. So
we represent real women. Not that the celebrities aren't real, but we deal with the nitty gritty at the coalface every day.
We do. And so tell me, what do you want to see going forward in the future? Because we're both the product of rescuing ourselves. I really do believe that. I think we really saved ourselves. So what do you think you would like to see going forward?
I think we talked about it earlier on. I think more education around, you know, hormone health. We often talk about mental health. We very rarely talk about menopause health and menopausal health from that respect, and they're very similar, aren't they, really? So it's about understanding that that link between mental health and menopause health. And what I think it all goes back to schools, and I think it's about young people and younger generations understanding about the effects that hormones can have, and not to give up. So, you know, if you're told no by your GP and you really do believe that there is something not right, then to go back to your GP, because I never did. And so I've lived a life that could have been far different. And, you know, I just didn't know. I didn't have the education. So what about you, Amantha? What are yours?
So I agree. I'm completely on that page. And the statistics are shocking. You know, it's been nearly 20 years. It's been 19 years since the big study that basically slammed HRT incorrectly,
Yeah.
I might add. Okay. And in that time, suicide and mental health issues have gone off the charts astronomically in the time when HRT was not being prescribed.
Yes.
So it's proof that women need HRT, because, you know, when you get those statistics rising like that, and doctors, less than 10% of doctors in the UK prescribe HRT, there's got to be something done about that.
That doesn't surprise me, because, you know, a lot of them don't know how to, they don't know what to prescribe. So it doesn't surprise me. And, you know, I think that most people who are watching this will know by now from the Davina McCall documentary that, you know, it's been identified that doctors only receive up to about 7 hours menopause training at medical school, which, when you think that every woman goes through menopause and goes through menopause differently, that's really quite shocking, isn't it, really?
Well, it is. And so what do I want on the wish list? Well, I was on a webinar the other night, which is where I heard about the testosterone, the great news about testosterone.
Ah, right, okay.
But actually, you know, more and more doctors are engaging in their own time, actually, with webinars, with training sessions, and that's brilliant. I think it should be a compulsory element at medical school. That's what I would absolutely call for, because it's currently an optional element. I think in terms of prescribing HRT, I don't think we need lots of blood tests. I think if a woman presents with the symptoms, she should get them. And here's the thing, they describe HRT like a three-legged stool, a three-legged stool. So you've got estrogen.
Go on, enlighten me. Go on.
Estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone.
Right. Yeah.
If we only give women estrogen and progesterone, what good is a two-legged stool?
I love that.
So women, like you said, throughout your entire life, you have 3 times more testosterone. The thing that keeps women in work in the boardroom is testosterone. Why? Because it eliminates brain fog, it improves cognitive function, it helps you sleep. There are such far-ranging, your mental health, your physical health, your muscle tone. They've actually looked at elite athletes, did you know, June, who literally, doesn't matter how many hours they spend in the gym, their strength does not improve. You put them on testosterone, their strength improves. They regain their glucose metabolism. The spare tire goes, that's deflated, and off that goes. So yeah,
I see it myself with people in the gym, and there's such a distinct difference between the women who are on HRT and the testosterone and the women that aren't. And there is just such a massive comparison to be made between both groups. And, you know, I've tried to get testosterone and haven't been successful. So it's great news to me that I can now request through my doctor those different ones, testosterone and
do you know and here's the really, this will put some fire in your belly, June. You've always been able, if you are a woman who is experiencing menopausal symptoms and you've already been on estrogen and progesterone and your symptoms haven't improved, you are ripe for requesting testosterone. And NICE actually says that that's what you can have. So Testogel you can have tomorrow.
But my doctor is reluctant because they don't know how to prescribe it, and I see that on 14 Fishes, so I don't know whether you connected up to that.
Yes,
Amantha.
the training.
And just see all of the communications that come in from GPs, whereby they're asking, they're uncertain about how to prescribe HRT, and so that in itself is quite surprising. And hopefully through the Menopause charity, that will then soon start to
I think so, and they are simplifying it. Even on the webinar call, there are 44 different types of estrogen progesterone combinations. They are whittling it down to I think it's about 9.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, just
Right.
make it they're advising GPs forget the old estrogen, the old progesterone, go for skin ones. There's next to
Yeah.
no cancer risks, so that's whittled it down to a choice of 9.
Oh, that's fantastic, because again, the oral ones go synthesize in your liver, and then you've got the transdermal, which are the sprays, the gels, the patches.
Exactly.
I didn't even know this when I was prescribed HRT straight after my hysterectomy. I was given a patch, and because it didn't agree with me, I never thought to go back to the doctors and say, this doesn't, work, can I have some gel or a spray or some lozenges? I just thought, oh, it doesn't agree with me, I can't have it. I didn't know there was 70 different preps.
I know, it's shocking, isn't it? And
It
I think
is.
and I think you're right, but what I think it is, it's about empowering women. The stuff's available on the internet. It's about positive challenge. It's not about getting arsey with your GP.
No.
It's about being confident. It's about being assertive. It's about taking the knowledge which is freely available, and actually stating your case. And your case is you want your hormones back and that you're eligible for them. And actually, if you're not the doctor in the practice who's confident, who is? And if there isn't one, I would consider changing doctors, because the reality is there is a doctor who will be more clued up and willing to prescribe that for you, because the long-term impact, June, as we know, your bone health, your heart health, your mental health, it's just too catastrophic not to. So I just want to personally say, as we draw our brilliant interview to a close, I could talk to you forever.
I could talk to you,
Yeah.
but that's amazing advice, what you're just saying there about going to your doctor and, journalizing your symptoms, investigating what you need, and then going fully prepared and, asking for somebody else if your doctor's unable to help you. I think that's brilliant advice that you've just given there, Amantha.
Thank you. And let's give a shout out for technology. There are lots of apps out there
Yes.
that can actually help you track. So don't feel it's got to be a paper and pen exercise. Find an app that works for you, that you can track your cycle. It empowers you to just make some notes. So I think that was a brilliant thing that you mentioned earlier. So as we finish off today, what are you doing for Christmas? What are your plans for Christmas? Are you taking a well-earned break?
I am. I'm finishing next week. I'm going to take the week off before and the week off after. So I haven't put a decoration up as yet. I'm on through, just been so busy. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm normally put my Christmas tree up the Saturday before Christmas and take it down the Saturday after. I'm not really one for decorations, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh, I'm the complete opposite. So
I can imagine.
I put mine up at 20 something of November, and it probably won't come down until literally the 11th hour before the 12th night or something. So
oh no.
So I wish you the happiest and most restful time, because you've worked so hard, and I would like to come back and have another conversation, because I think in 6 months we'll be talking about something else.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
how that's really moving forward. So thank you for all that you are doing to support businesses in ensuring that women stay in work. So we're going to put all your contact details, but would you like to give a shout out before you go to let people know your website and where they can, just know more about you?
Yeah, of course. I have my own website, which is Menopause 360. So that's www.menopause360.co.uk. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn under June Potts. And that's basically, I don't do other social media mediums, and that's basically because I struggle to live an offline life as it is, and I don't really want to live an online life. So I'm not really available on Facebook or on Instagram. So my main focus is LinkedIn, because that's where the community where I work in is based. So I work with organizations. But if anyone has any questions on an individual basis, then please do get in touch with me. Or they can get in touch with you as well.
They can. And this is going to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to, at the very least, connect with June. You'll find her posts really uplifting, really insightful. She is a really, really intelligent, amazing lady who's used her negative situation for the greater good of women. And I think that is so commendable, and we should all be doing more of that. So thank you, June, for your time today, and I will see you next time.
Thanks, Samantha.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.